Hello, welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. My name is Cory Carlson, and I'm a leadership coach and author and speaker, and partnering with CDO Magazine for this interview series. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Matt King. He is the Chief Security and Data Officer with Belcan. So, thank you very much, Matt, for joining.
Cory, thanks for having me.
I love just talking to leaders about is, and you and I had a personal connection even before we hit record by getting to meet at another time. But just knowing that you value family and work, what's that key trait that you see that leaders need to have to do both well at home and work in today's marketplace?
It all comes down to balance and support for me, Cory. So, obviously, if you're not taking care of your family, it's difficult to have the right support you need at home, and vice versa, right? Everything in life should be a balance. So, I like to spend as much time as possible in my downtime with my family, doing activities together. We spend a lot of time on the weekend doing things, whether it's just watching movies, activities around the house. Anything to build relationships. All of life is built around relationships, and to me, that's the most important thing in life. If you get through life at the end of your lifelong journey and you're old and you're near your deathbed, I don't think you're going to be thinking about all your necessary accomplishments at work. You're going to be thinking about all those relationships that you built. Now, some of those are with work, some of them are with your family, but that balance can help to strike your direction that you need to go, but also allows you to remain a little less de-stressed, a little less stressed rather, so that you can continue to have a journey that is fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that answer of the idea of balance, and I know it's not always perfectly balanced. You've
That's not.
obviously risen to an executive level, chief security and data officer. So during that climb, how did you balance it? I mean, those listeners and viewers who are watching this, as they're trying to think about growing their career, but it's not an either or. It's not, hey, you can have success at home, but you won't be able to have success at work. You've proven you can do both. And so, like, what are some tangible pieces that the listeners, the viewers could see as they incorporate into their career?
Yeah, you have to have a continuous learner mindset to grow in your career to get to an executive level. You need to have support of your family, but if you're not, going back to balance, if you're not having that balance, it's going to be difficult for them to provide that support to you. In actuality, it really comes down to having some of that servant leadership attitude, right? You're being a servant leader to both your family and to the people who work for you as you grow, and dedicating time towards your own personal growth and also time to your family and their growth with those relationships is really key for that balance. So I've seen a lot of people in the past where they spend so much energy dedicating, the entirety of their free time studying, and that's okay for some people. But if you want to have family and meaning in your life, you need to strike that balance. So there's an understanding with that you need to have with your family of simply being transparent and coming to an agreement with them verbally of, okay, these are the days or nights that I'm going to spend educating myself. Whereas you guys may not see me as much during those days, but I promise to dedicate that other time to you when I'm free for the other nights.
Man, I love that communication up front. I know for in my own personal life, when I would travel a lot, if I'd wait till last minute and tell my wife, it would not go well.
Yeah.
Versus if I gave her a heads up, hey, in 3 weeks, I'm going out of town. And so it sounds like you and I are on the same page with communication early as opposed to delaying it, hoping, I don't know, just the time will pass.
And that works best in all walks of life, whether it's in business, your personal relationships, or what have you. Just be open and honest with your communication and plan accordingly so you're not surprising people along the way.
Right. You mentioned the importance of being a continuous learner. Do you invest in yourself? I mean, do you kind of just wait till Belcan says, "Hey, we're going to invest in you"? Do you do things outside? Is it reading books? Is it a podcast? What have you found to help you the most, and what are you currently learning?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all the above. So I'm fortunate to I use the word fortunate to have a 45-minute drive each way. I do try to use that time wisely with listening to audiobooks around various leadership topics and things of that nature. I also have a session I do with the leaders of my organization where we're reading various leadership books for growth so that I can help to develop them. We talk about what we're reading, things of that nature. Also, just staying on top of what's happening in the industry, things that we're planning for from a regulatory perspective. That's always critical to staying in front of things. But personal growth from a technology perspective, a leadership perspective, depending on your focus, just finding trainings, ways to improve and grow for what's upcoming in the industry. LinkedIn actually does a fairly good job of, with as much things as people are sharing, you can get a lot of free content just to learn about what's upcoming and know what's going to happen in your particular industry to be prepared for those sorts of things. So for me, it's really all about preparedness. It's about forward thinking, foresight for whatever's going to be coming down the pipe.
With a 45-minute drive both directions, that's a lot, by the way.
Yeah.
And you wanting to get home to make sure you're present with the family, that means your day's got to be pretty tight as far as meetings and getting your own work done. And as
Yeah.
I work with my own clients and just even know from my own experience in corporate, how do you manage that 8 to 5? So you're not just in meetings all the time, but at the same time, you've got time to get your personal projects done and Matt, help us understand just how do you manage your meetings? How do you manage your energy about the day so you're getting both your work items done, but also just the mundane meetings?
Yeah. So I would say there are two things there that really help me to get through all the things that we have to get done. One is I've got a really strong supportive team here, really good leaders that are reporting to me that help me to make my day easier. So it's a little bit of a divide and conquer. But there's also one key concept that one of my leaders instilled in me years and years ago, and that's the concept of something called planned neglect. And the word neglect obviously is in many people's ears or eyes is a negative word. But if you're prioritizing, in other words, planning exactly what you're neglecting with purpose due to that prioritization, it helps you to develop and move freely and more easily define what your day is going to look like, right? I've seen leaders in the past where they're just trying to answer everything all at once. And that can be a chaotic and stressful situation. But if you're neglecting some of those things for a particular time period and you bulk those smaller items into a planned time frame that you want to respond to those, you may neglect them now, come back to them maybe on a Friday afternoon when it's less busy, depending on what your schedule looks like. You're able to better prioritize what your typical day to day looks like. So I'll simply block out timeframes in my calendar to make sure that I've got the ability to handle those things that I may have neglected earlier in the week due to urgent items that may come through or other planned items that are a higher priority.
So getting tactical, do you have like an hour blocked out Thursday or Friday? It's almost like called planned and neglect or
I have various time periods that I've blocked out for specific purposes such as that.
yeah, it's pretty powerful. A phrase that I heard years ago and I just continue to live into and think about is the quantity of our no's will drive the quality of our yeses.
Mm, I like
Quantity of
that
our
one.
no's drive the quality of our yeses. And this idea in personal and professional life, if you say no to going to the barbecue or going to whatever that is, then when you show up to something you actually said yes to, you're excited, you have more energy. Same
Yeah,
thing at work. If you're saying yes to every single meeting, you'll just show up at 75% energy
right.
level. But if you're saying no, then when you do show up to a project or a meeting, you're all in.
Right. Yeah, and you want to be there with focus on that particular topic rather than being distracted by other things that are happening in the background. I see a lot of that happens too, depending on, what's going on in an organization.
I like how you have the book club, leadership book club, and it sounds like you really invest into your direct reports. Do you have set one-on-one meetings? I mean, what does the
Oh,
cadence look like? Is in there a structure in there? Matt, there's one item I've learned in my coaching with business leaders is some don't do one-on-one coaching. They still go the
yeah.
ad hoc approach. What has your approach been with one-on-one meetings?
Having regular conversations with your direct reports, whether they're leaders or whether they're individual contributors, to help them with their growth. And this is their dedicated time, I feel is extremely important. You may only have time to do that once a month or once every couple of weeks. My cadence is typically once every couple of weeks with my direct reports. But it's very important to help them to grow, to help them to discuss things that they may have concerns with or discuss ideas that they have. And the way that I do that with my staff is really this is their time. They need to use their time wisely as a part of those one-on-one conversations to talk about how they can grow themselves, any questions they have around the business, any questions they have around what they need to be doing to improving, ideas that they have for things in the organization. I've got a very open mindset within the organization as a part of a culture with psychological safety that I employ within the organization, right? Of everybody has the ability to bring in topics and we all listen to those topics. It may not be the direction that we go ultimately, but the collective mindset, there's always different ideas coming from different walks of life. And that's very important to share those things. And both within a one-on-one frame set or within a group frame set. But that one-on-one time is really intended to help with the growth of the individual, so that they can become a better performer, so that they can just continue to improve and to grow within their work life, and so that we can become stronger together.
Hmm. Knowing you value family, knowing you value your personal life, are you bringing up personal goals in the one-on-ones with the employees, or
I
you?
do.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm more of a reactionary type coach is probably the best way to put it. Like if somebody's talking about something that they are dealing with, or if they come with a specific question, I'll bring in life stories about things that I may have discussed with the boys, or ways that I helped to encourage them about things, or ways that I've helped to coach them in a specific situation, just for a referential type scenario. And there have even been times where people reporting to me have had personal conversations about their family life where they say, "Hey, I'm dealing with this situation. What would you do in this situation, or what have you? Or have you had to deal with a similar situation within your own family life?" And sometimes I have, sometimes I haven't, but I'm always willing to offer advice based on my experiences.
Well, I'm very biased, and I'm therefore I'm glad you do that. I just know in my when I think of my favorite bosses, they cared about the whole self, not just it wasn't just work, work, work. It was how's home, how's work, and
Yeah,
it seems like you're probably a lot of their favorite bosses because you're doing both home and work. Because the reality is, we all perform better if our whole self is doing better, home and work.
absolutely.
Man, how are you with accountability and kind of follow through for those one-on-ones if they didn't meet the deadline? If the project wasn't to the level of excellence that you want? How many listeners, viewers will have a difficulty time with accountability, and just holding, people accountable for the situation? How do you do that with your one-on-ones?
So the best way I describe this with my people is, when they're not meeting the goals that they set for themselves, and part of my methodology with them is when we're talking about deadlines, sometimes it's a business driven deadline, in which case, it prevents us from moving forward as a business, and sometimes it's a personal driven deadline. But I allow them to have input into that deadline date, and then if they don't meet that date, they're really only harming themselves and their own progress. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that. Many people just in a work culture, they feel like, oh, they didn't meet the date. And it's, they may be nonchalant about it, or they may not be getting the proper coaching about it. But in 9 times out of 10, whoever you're reporting to, they are paying attention to those deadlines. And when you miss those deadlines, it's going to impact your
Mhm.
performance and your performance reviews and things of that nature, right? So if you're not able to hit those deadlines and not being accountable for yourself for what you help to develop, it simply impacts you in your journey in your career. So, being having that level of integrity of honoring your commitments in doing so in a thorough and effective manner is very critical. However, there are some times where people just didn't fully understand what the request was, and you have to give some balance there, right? And it's a lot like with your kids actually, because
Right.
encouraging failure for a sense of growth is very key. That's how all humans have learned. The wheel wasn't created without failures, right? Nothing that's
Mhm.
been created by humans were created on the first time that I can think of. So everybody learns through those failures. And if you're not allowing and encouraging those failures to happen, then it's a detriment to your entire organization, not just to yourself or to your direct report. So it's about understanding what the task was. It's about ensuring that they understand how to tackle that, because I've also found in situations where some leaders will make an assumption that they can completely delegate a task to the individual. But really, you need to be specific with an understanding of their level of expertise with every task, not just with their general role. They could have a general role where they've got strong expertise holistically, but there may be a specific task that you assume that they have experience with that they don't know how to do. And that will result in challenges and failures and extensions. And being able to identify where there may be a challenge there quickly, in other words, failing quickly, is key to that achievement and to that growth and becoming better holistically. So when sort of an assignment comes into play there, we talk about, okay, what is your level of experience with this? If we haven't had that discussion before, if it's something that you're assigning new, and you basically go through. I take them through sort of a phased approach of, okay, our deadline is in a month. Let's do a checkpoint in a week to see how things are going, to take a look at your plan, see what things are doing. Some people you don't need to do that for at all. You just say, okay, get this to me in a month and it's done. But if you're unsure and the person is unsure, you got to do a certain level of coaching, situational coaching, depending on what that scenario is. So stepping through sort of phased approaches to see how they're doing and evaluating. Some cases you may need to determine and give them some extra coaching or help them to come to the conclusion of whatever is needed in order to help them to grow.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Matt, very much for joining me today. Enjoyed the conversation. And for the listeners, thank you for watching and this far. And please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Cory.